Welcome, everyone. Really glad to have you with us today. I'm Karen from the marketing team at Rasa, and today's presentation is the March edition of Beyond the Release Notes, which is a new webinar series that we're doing all about the latest Rasa product updates. So let me start with just a little bit of an intro about what we'll cover during the webinar. Beyond the Release Notes happens once a month, and it lasts for 1 hour. Each webinar that we do will include a panel of speakers from the Rasa product, engineering, and research teams, and we'll be covering the latest features that are rolling out to Rasa users. So the reason why we launched this series is that out of all of the ways that you can learn about new releases in Rasa, whether that's checking GitHub or the docs or reading the newsletter, we wanted to provide a way for you to really get a curated and in-depth look at what's new. So when you tune into Beyond the Release Notes every month, you'll not only be sure that you're hearing about the most important updates, you'll also be able to hear how to use new features really directly from the teams that are actually building them. Oh, there we go. And so with that, let me go ahead and introduce our speakers. We have Alan Nickel, who is the Rasa CTO and co-founder. Scott Truitt, VP Product Management, who joined Rasa just late last year. We're really excited to welcome him to his first Rasa webinar. And then we also have Tobias Wochinger, software engineer, and Doc Schwarzsnea, machine learning researcher at Rasa. So on the agenda, we'll be starting with Alan. He'll be giving us a welcome and an overview of Rasa news. Then Scott will lead us through product themes for 2021. Tobias is going to be doing a deep dive into Insights, which is a new feature that just launched with Rasa X. Doc is going to be explaining a recent change, excuse me, that makes model confidences more reliable. And then finally, we'll bring back all of our speakers at the end for a live Q&A. So just a few logistical details before we jump into it. So the session will be recorded. So if you want to watch it later, or if you want to share it with a colleague who couldn't be here today, do check your email in a couple of days and we'll send you the video. We'll also be posting the recording to the Rasa YouTube channel. You can submit any questions for the Q&A at any point during the broadcast. So just use the Zoom Q&A feature and go ahead and send those in. We'll be collecting all of your questions and we'll ask them on air at the end of the webinar. And with that, Alan, I will go ahead and hand things over to you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Karen. That was a really nice introduction, and I hope we can live up to the promise of what we'd like this webinar to be. So, thanks everyone for joining. I'll give you a quick update on some news, and then I'll get out of the way as quickly as possible so you can hear from the folks who built the new features what's new in Rasa. So last month we had the Rasa Summit, which was an online event. It was really just absolutely fantastic. We started off with 2 days of workshops, both for developers, but also for product owners and designers on how to work with Rasa, how to work with conversation-driven development. Then we had 3 days of talks with over 30 different speakers. And one of the pieces of feedback that I heard consistently from people who attended the event was that they loved how diverse the topics were. I mean, we heard about interesting sort of academic applications of Rasa, but lots of production stories. Some research talks, all sorts of interesting things, and also from some of our friends in the conversational AI community more widely. We had over 1,000 people attend, and it was a really just fantastic online event. And I'm sure we'll be doing more online events again soon. Luckily, we also recorded all of those talks. So if you were registered for the summit and you want to go back and watch them again, all of the talks are available sort of on demand. So if you just go back to rasa.com/summit, you can go in there and log into the event portal and just rewatch any of the talks, or any that you might have missed. If you didn't register, you're not going to miss out. So we are posting, edited versions of all the videos to our YouTube channel. A few of them are already up, and over the next couple of weeks, we'll be rolling the rest of them out. So a couple of new things on the community showcase on our website. If you haven't been there before, it's rasa.com/showcase. If you build something interesting, let us know. Please submit it. We'd love to feature cool things that the community have built on there. One sort of enterprise production use case that we were excited to tell the world about in the last couple of weeks was from T-Mobile, which is the #2 wireless carrier in the US. Have a staggering number of customers who they want to help with an assistant. And I think it's a really sort of cutting edge team. They're doing really fantastic things. And they're seeing big results as well. So actually, if you go on our YouTube channel, there's a talk from Heather, who's a fantastic machine learning engineer over there, and really explains, the process, how they got something up and running. And I think the time scale that they got something in production is really quite impressive. Then we have another bot from a speaker at Rasa Summit, Nicholas. So Alpaca is a bot on Facebook Messenger, which helps renters find an apartment. And you can go and try that out right now. So it's just available to anybody on Facebook Messenger. You can find the link via rasa.com/showcase. And then 2 projects from the community, which are also open source and are all about learning. So Moltron, which is about answering your questions about machine learning, and Cbot, which answers your questions about the C programming language. We've got links to the GitHub repos for both of those. So those are, if you're looking for inspiration or a starting point for a new project, do please go and check those out. Then a couple more things from us in a similar vein. So we have these starter packs, which are quite popular. The idea of a starter pack is that it gives you a scaffold, either as a source of inspiration or a starting point for building your own assistant. With some things implemented, some example, API calls and forms and things like that. And so we already had ones for financial services, and we've published 2 new starter packs, one for retail and one for insurance. And they, demonstrate a bunch of different skills that these assistants can do, show you how to, integrate with different backend systems to really automate a process for the user. And of course, if you want to build with any of these things, I would strongly recommend that you use this as a starting point, but then as soon as possible, give these assistants to real users to test, right, and start practicing conversation-driven development and seeing what your users' expectations are, right? So they're a source of inspiration, a source of maybe reference implementations of ideas how you can do things. But they aren't finished products in any sense, right? And they aren't intended to be either. So you can find all of these just on the landing page of the docs, rasa.com/docs. And then something I wanted to touch on, we don't have a deep dive on this today, but I just wanted to remind everybody, end-to-end learning is something that we released at the end of last year in Rasa Open Source 2.2. And it's a feature we're very excited about. It's not ready for production yet. And the reason I mention it is because I'm keen for all of you who are interested in trying out the latest features to kind of kick the tires on it, see where it breaks, and help us find out, what the contours are and make it better and get it production ready. And so the key idea behind end-to-end is that not every message that a user sends your assistant is going to fit into an intent, right? That's a very small, limiting assumption. And so the example on the right kind of motivates this, right? If you're asking the user, what do you think about Chinese food? You might have thought that they could say yes or no, right? But they might say something like, I had that yesterday, right? And if you've been building an assistant, you'll obviously encounter these things where you're looking through the conversations that people had and you go, I don't really know what intent that belongs to, right? That doesn't really make sense in any of the ones I have. And I also wouldn't know what would be a new intent to invent that makes sense in this place. And so the end-to-end model actually removes that restriction. You can interpret a message like that in context without actually having an intent defined for it. So extremely powerful. We think it's a key piece of unlocking, level 3, 4, 5 conversational AI. But we need all of you to give it a go and help us push it further. So most of this will be covered in the deep dives, but just a quick overview of new things that have come out from us. So we made some changes to how model confidences work, or rather give you more options of how to work with model confidences in Rasa Open Source 2.3. And Daksha is going to be talking about that later on. Then in Rasa X 0.36, we have this cool new feature called Intent Insights, which Tobias is going to do a deep dive on later today. So I won't tell you too much about that. I won't spoil the fun. And also a highly requested feature, which is that messages in the NLU inbox, so that list that gives you all the messages users have sent, you can use to improve your NLU model. You can also now filter those by date. So if you're looking for a particular time range. Something more relevant really at enterprise scale, in Rasa X 0.37, we included a new caching feature, which means that even if you have many millions of conversations in your database, right, because you have a huge customer base, the conversation screen and the whole UI is still snappy and responsive. So obviously a very significant change, but only for those who have very large deployments. So I think that's it for me, and I get to hand it over to Scott. And so I'll just echo what Karen said. Welcome to your first Rasa webinar, and take it away.
Thanks, Alan. Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Truitt, VP of Product Management at Rasa. You can go to the next slide. Sorry, I should have that in front of me. So I'm quite fond of our mission statement, and I think it's worth considering the intention and impact behind it. Rasa empowers all makers to build AI assistants that work for everyone. And those 3 lines pack a lot of punch. They also lay out our objectives in a way that even I hadn't fully grasped until recently. They're separate but intertwined. And we spent a lot of time thinking about how to make better customer experiences, not just possible, but probable. That's the conversations that work for everyone, block at the top. We continue to innovate in the platform experience. That's the conversational engine that builds AI assistance, block at the bottom. And we're doubling down on our maker experience too. That's the conversation-driven development, or CDD workflows that empower all makers in the middle. And these last 2 blocks map to our products. Rasa Open Source is a flexible, customizable platform for NLU, dialogue management, integrations, running your bot, and more. It's the engine that powers the assistant and the foundation for all workflows to improve it over time. And again, Daksha is here to discuss one of our newest enhancements around model confidence. And of course, as the name implies, Rasa Open Source is free for all. And Rasa X is our tooling for listening to your users and using those insights to improve your AI assistant. In every conversation, users are telling you in their own words exactly what they want. And Tobias is here to discuss one of our newest features called NLU Insights. And we so believe in this CDD workflow. It's completely integral to creating good conversations that we make Rasa X free for all as well, although of course the source code is private. Oh, can you go back one? Thank you, sorry. As we learn more about our community and customers, we realize that Rasa X and Rasa Enterprise, fulfill 2 distinct needs. Rasa X is our solution for CDD on a small team. It's tooling that supports, expands, and perfects CDD will always be free. Rasa Enterprise is our solution for CDD on one-to-many enterprise teams. And it's important to say that Rasa Enterprise extends the features of Rasa Open Source and workflows in Rasa X. It doesn't replace them, it's more. Rasa Enterprise focuses on helping large organizations collaborate at scale, manage data complexity, as Alan mentioned a second ago, gain deeper insights into their customers' true needs. Enterprise use cases also require more advanced toolings to build more complex multi-channel, multi-language, multi-skill assistants. And of course, as you might imagine, Rasa Enterprise is a paid product. Next slide, please. And what's interesting to me, and a large part of why I was so excited to join Rasa, is that these new challenges and opportunities are just a thrill to work on. We need to think not only about how the technology works, but how humans will use this technology to build great customer experiences. And first off, we know that enterprises have multidisciplinary teams with technical users like developers and data scientists, business users like product owners, like product owners and conversation designers, and stakeholders like legal, compliance, and more. And how do they all work together in one seamless workflow? And second, we know that enterprises have multiple business units, and each one has unique skills and capabilities, different integrations with back office systems, different legal and compliance workflows, and so much more. And each one of these teams needs to work in isolation, but their output also needs to be part of that greater experience. So how do they all work together in one seamless workflow? And we're actively developing an exciting new feature around these two problem domains. And I want to give you a sneak peek of what we call Rasa Enterprise Workspaces V1. So this is designed for multidisciplinary teams. Workspaces allow multiple users, whether they're technical or non-technical, to annotate NLU training data at the same time. Provides an easy way to group annotations, provides visibility on the state of changes, and even an approval workflow that will likely extend to support version control natively in the UI in a future release. Well, there's lots more in the works for Rasa Enterprise, but I'll save that for next month's presentation. I just wanted to give you a sneak peek into the way we're thinking about these problems and how that's going to reflect in the product. So with that, thank you for your time. Happy to answer any questions you might have at the end of the session, so please ask away. Next up, Tobias.
Hi, I'm Tobias, and I've got the honor to present my team's work on Intent Insights today. Intent Insights are a feature which was introduced in Rasa X 30.6. So if you upgrade to Rasa X 30.6 or newer, you will be able to use it. And Rasa Intent Insights are a feature which will help you to effectively practice conversation-driven development at scale. As you use conversation-driven development to improve your assistant, you ideally gather a lot of input, a lot of conversation and messages by your users. This amount of data can sometimes be a bit overwhelming, and you might be overwhelmed, like where actually to start with all this massive information and data you're getting. Intent Insights help here. They help you to work smarter. They help you to work smarter by focusing on the areas which have the highest impact, and help you to effectively prioritize your annotations. So the annotations which you will make will have ideally the biggest impact and will help you to improve your assistant quicker, and hence improving your assistant's user experience. Also, while you maintain an assistant over time, it can be challenging to maintain a high quality training data set. This is similar to any engineering project, right? Like creating software is simpler than maintaining software over a longer period of time. And the same approach kind of applies to training data. So as you have an assistant over a long time, you have like very large data sets. Also your team might change, different persons might have slightly different perceptions of training data. So having a good quality and consistent data set can be a challenge. Intent Insights will also help you here, right? They will automatically analyze your training data. They will surface issues in your training data, and then they will also provide actionable next steps for your team to actually fix these training data issues, to improve your system and to make it more robust. You can find Intent Insights in the left navigation bar of Rasa X. It's a completely new screen which we added. Once you have, if you could just go one slide further, please. Amazing, yeah. Once you have upgraded to Rasa X 36 and newer, then you will see this brand new screen. It will actually be empty once you go there, because you haven't run the Intent Insight calculation yet. To actually see the insights, you have to run the calculation, and then, yeah, how to run it is on the next slide. So because Intent Insight calculation can take a little while, depending on the size of your training data, we recommend to run these evaluations overnight so that you can actually come back to Rasa X in the morning and see these insights and then improve your assistance based on that. If you want to run the evaluation right away, you can just also click the button on the bottom left corner to run the evaluation right away. Yeah, it can take a little while depending on the size of your training data. Once you've run that, you can actually see the intent insights which were calculated. And it looks like that. So it's a table which will present you a row for each intent and then some information for each intent. So in the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the intent name, how many training data examples this intent has, what its precision is, and what the recall is. So this gives you kind of the basic health state for each intent at the quick glance. So you can just look at that and have like a rough idea how this intent looks like in your training data. In the column to the right, you can see the warnings. These warnings show you which suggestions intent insights actually have surfaced, right? So things which are wrong or could be improved about the training data of your intent. And then again, in the column to the right, you can see the suggestions which we kind of derived from these warnings, which can also actually help you to fix these issues in your training data and will help you to create a better assistant. So you might wonder what is actually used to calculate these insights for my assistants. So we're using different sources. Definitely the most important source of information for the insight calculation is the cross-validation. So the cross-validation is run based on your training data. So how our cross-validation works is that we cut your training data into multiple pieces. So if you do a four-fold cross-validation, then we will actually have 4 pieces of your training data. And then we will use 3 pieces to train a model and use the 4th piece to evaluate this model. And we kind of shuffle this around. So with a 4-fold cross-validation, we will actually train 4 models and we'll evaluate it 4 times. And this gives us a pretty consistent view on the training data and the quality of the training data, and also on the quality of the models which are trained based on this training data. And this is also the reason why we recommend running the insight calculation overnight, because depending on your training data size, training 4 models might take a little while and it's not just like there within a few seconds. Then the other source for the insight calculation is your training data. So this once goes into the cross-validation, but we also have a direct look on this, for example, to see how many numbers of training examples an intent has. And then the last input source for the insight calculation is the NLU inbox. We're actually looking at your user messages to see whether there are messages which are repeatedly classified with low confidences. So we can detect trends, how your users use your assistant, and also surface issues for that. For example, that an intent would need more examples so that it's classified with a higher confidence. And all of this goes into the insight calculation and hopefully gives you actionable next steps. Intent insights analyze your model for various kinds of problems. So we can detect intents which have too few training examples. We can surface intents whose training data is too similar. In that case, you might either to merge these intents or you want to make them more distinguishable. We can also detect class imbalances. For example, if one intent has a lot of training data examples, then your model might be biased towards this intent. This is something intent insights can detect. We can also help you find wrong annotations in your training data. This is just completely naturally to happen over time, right? Maybe you just hit the wrong button or there's some small copy paste error. That's not a big deal with intent insights because they will surface these kind of problems. And also we're able to surface any intents which are repeatedly classified with low confidences based on your user messages. The cool thing is all insight calculators are configurable via APIs. All these parameters are documented and exposed to you, so you can actually adapt this to your assistant. We're currently also working on tweaking these parameters to sensible defaults. So we're doing this based on user input, but also a couple of internal dogfooding projects. So intent insights will come with better defaults in the future. And our research team is also already working on some machine learning powered approaches to find more issues and to have more robust mechanisms to surface issues in your training data. So you can really be stoked what's coming. I'm really proud of my team shipping this, but I'm even more excited how this will continue because this gives us just a lot of space to do very, very cool things to help you to do conversation-driven development at scale. And with that, I'd like to wrap up and hand over to Daksh.
Thanks a lot, Tobias. Hi everyone. I would be talking about some of the work that we've been doing in the recent past about making the confidences or the predicted confidences of machine learning models more reliable for different use cases. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right, so let's understand the problem. And this is a problem that actually came from the community on the forum. And a lot of folks had flagged this problem where they reported that a lot of our machine learning components like diet classifier, TED policy, response selector, most of them make their predictions with a high confidence, even for examples which are not directly present in your training data. And now if the prediction happens to be correct, that's great, that's wonderful, right? But then if the prediction is wrong and the confidence is high, that's absolutely problematic, because for different use cases like triggering fallback mechanism, where depending on your assistant's uncertainty, you would like to maybe ask a clarifying question, or you might want to hand over to, let's say, a human assistant, those kind of use cases basically are not possible. And the way how you trigger fallback mechanisms is by setting a fallback threshold and on the confidences basically. And the way how you then tune your confidences is by looking at what you see on the right, which is known as a confidence histogram. Now, this particular confidence histogram that you see is generated by running the Rasa test NLU command on our in-house demo bot, Sarah. And what this confidence histogram shows, or how is it generated, is basically by taking your evaluation data set, running all your examples through the trained model, and then making predictions for each of your example, and also recording the confidence with which each of those examples was predicted. And then all of these recordings of the confidences are divided into whether that's a correct prediction or a wrong prediction. And then a histogram is plotted where for a range of confidences, we show how many number of samples are predicted with that range of confidence, right? So over here in the plot, if you see, the problem lies with the wrong predictions, where you can see that a lot of samples are predicted wrongly with a high confidence. And this is something that we want to prevent, because when if you set a confidence threshold, let's say in this plot to somewhere around 0.8, you might notice that a lot of examples would just surpass the confidence threshold and you won't be able to trigger the fallback. Can we go to the next slide, please? And when we started looking into why this might be happening, we found that the way how we compute confidences internally in our machine learning components is by using what is known as a softmax function. And this softmax function uses an exponential normalization term. And this exponentiation of the terms is what actually pushes the values to large confidence values. And what we found was that if we just basically remove the exponentiation of the terms and use a simple linear normalization, it produces a much more even spread of confidences across the range of 0 and 1. So on the right, you see actually a plot which uses this linear normalization scheme. And as you can see, first of all, a lot of the highly confident wrong predictions are gone now. You do not have that many wrong predictions which are highly confident. But also what's important to notice is that you now see a lot of correct predictions, but the model is less confident for these. And you might say that in this case that now when I trigger fallback, a lot of these correct predictions will also trigger fallback, which is not the best user experience. But then this is actually a good indication of your training data, because this actually shows that some of your examples or intents are overlapping with other intents, and hence your model is getting confused for those examples while assigning an intent. And this fits in very neatly with the NLU Insights feature, because one of the warnings that we show over there is which intents have been consistently predicted with a low confidence. And in order to surface those examples, it becomes important to use a confidence measure which is able to surface these examples. So our recommendation is that you switch to this confidence measure by basically setting the option model underscore confidence to the value linear underscore norm. The example, or the slide over here shows only for diet classifier, but this can be done for all TED policy as well as response selector. And if you're interested in a bit more technical details about why this problem occurs, I would encourage all of you to watch the algorithm whiteboard video that's hosted on our YouTube channel. And as always, this is a feature for which we love to have some feedback. So make sure if you try it out, you give some feedback on the forum. And with that, I'll hand it back to Karen.
Great, thank you so much, Daksh. We'll have all of our panelists come back on and turn their cameras back on. Hello again, everyone. Cool. So we got a few questions in through the chat already. If you have a question, you can go ahead and submit it now and we'll just go through those. So to start out with, we had a couple of questions from Andrew. Daksh, I think I'm going to start with you. So Andrew asks, is there any flexibility with NLU models, or is SVM the only option?
So we actually do not have an SVM model as a classifier inside Rasa Open Source. What we have is what we call as a diet classifier, which is a dual intent and entity prediction model. And the reason behind it is that our experiments have shown that this is a consistent model which has shown good performance across different settings. But if you are actually interested to try out some lightweight architectures, there is a separate NLU examples repo that we host on our Rasa GitHub. And over there, you might want to try out what is called as a naive-based classifier. It's highly pluggable within your Rasa pipeline. You can try that out. But I would also like to point out that the advantage that you get when you use a diet classifier is that the performance for entity recognition is actually quite improved. And it's difficult to get that performance with standalone entity extractors like CRF entity extractor that we have within Rasa Open Source.
Excellent. Cool. I think this is another question from Andrew. Alan, I think I'm going to pass this over to you. So where can you find some details about the Rasa software license, or if you want to give just kind of a broad overview of what that license looks like?
Yeah. So Rasa Open Source is under Apache 2. So you can find that on GitHub. You can see the little license file and the indicator in the GitHub UI. And then Rasa Enterprise is a paid enterprise license. And then Rasa X has, we don't make the source code available, right? But the product is free to use. And so you're free to use it also for commercial use. The only thing you're not allowed to do is kind of build a SaaS product of like hosted Rasa X to serve other third parties, right? So we'll dig up the link and share it. And we have both the formal text of that license and an FAQ about it. And then Rasa Open Source is just under Apache 2, so that should be familiar enough.
Great. Let's see. Next one is kind of a two-part question. Scott, I'll pass this to you. So can Rasa be hosted or not? And if Rasa is hosted, what happens with the data?
Excellent question. I guess questions. So I think what you're asking is, do we run a hosted service for Rasa? And the answer to that is no, we do not today. Something we're always exploring and considering. So if you have feedback there, would love to hear it. So that really answers the second question. We don't touch your data. You have the choice of running this in your own data center servers or in the cloud, however you choose. The data is yours and yours alone. There's no third-party peeking or prying in. You're not training Google or Amazon on how to compete with your business. You simply own all of that code and data.
Perfect. And then Daksh, this next question will be for you. This is from Geronim, who asks, how is the constrained similarities config playing into the linear norm setting?
That's a great question, actually. So we did ship that constrained similarities option as well along with it. So the recommendation there as well is to set that constrained similarities to true. The narrative and the motivation behind doing that is also similar, that we want the similarities to not shoot up in their absolute values. And these similarities are actually what are used to compute confidences. And so if you're actually trying out, I would definitely encourage you to use turn constraint similarities to true and also set model confidence to linear norm. Having said that, model confidence can be set to linear norm without setting constraint similarities to true as well.
Great. Thanks, Daksh. Tobias, this next one is for you. Mahesh asks, what is the best strategy for deployment?
I would actually use the Rasa quick installation script. So this will actually install like Rasa X in server mode and directly on a machine using an internal Kubernetes cluster. And the very cool thing is that this gives you a really quick start. But as you scale and want to customize your deployment more and more, you can switch over to Helm and actually customize every setting you want. So you have this quick start, but you're not locked in or anything.
Awesome. Next question. Alan, I think this might be a good one to start with you, but if anyone else has thoughts, please chime in. So are there any plans to make the chatbot learn automatically? So to recognize questions that are added to NLU data, and then in the back end, sort of like retrain and load the model automatically. So next time that question gets answered.
Yeah, it's a great question and obviously a very cool idea. I guess we would put this in the bucket of efforts to automate the CDD process. So if you go on either the Rasa blog or on YouTube and search for the 5 levels of conversational AI, that's actually one of the themes that we talk about, is as we make assistants more sophisticated, is how much of this process of learning from real conversations can we automate? No hard promises about new feature releases or something like that, but as Daksh was already hinting at, Tobias was hinting at earlier in the intent insights, that might be a very natural place for that kind of functionality to come in. And so stay tuned. And if you have cool ideas, please chime in on the forum. Would love to discuss that further.
Cool. Next question, Tobias. I think this probably would be a good one for you. Is it possible to run multiple Rasa chatbots in one instance, or do I have to start one Docker server or Docker container / server for each chatbot?
So the way it's currently implemented is that you would actually start one Docker server per Rasa open source model. But well, thanks to Docker, this shouldn't be a huge thing because each Docker image runs as one process, right? So they share resources. So this is not a waste of resources at all, and also gives you the opportunity to scale your bots individually.
Cool. Next question is just kind of where to find out about like new release schedules. I think I'm going to actually kind of start with this one. So really, is there any plan on a release schedule? If yes, can we get a general idea of what it will be? And if there's already kind of an idea on when Rasa 3 will be released? I would say probably the best place to find out about that is going to be beyond the release notes. So make sure, kind of a shameless plug for this webinar, but make sure that you tune in because we will be kind of previewing sort of big things that are coming down the line next. I don't know, Scott, Alan, any other place that you would point for that?
I'd say it's quite likely that we, get to a Rasa 3.0 this year, but we don't have a firm date yet or anything like that.
Cool. Let's see. Maybe Tobias, I think this would be a good one for you. Which is the best open source web chat client that you would recommend?
To be honest, I don't know, but I know my teammate Sam is currently working upon implementing one, which will also be published soon, I guess.
Oh, that's exciting. Cool. Let's see. Maybe I'll just field this one to you next as well. Is there any free service that is robust enough to serve both Rasa Open Source and Rasa Action Server? I think this is probably referring to hosting service, if I'm reading that correctly.
You could try probably using an EC2 instance on AWS. As far as I know, you get a lot of like free credit points, at least like to run for a year or so. So you could try using that. But yeah, I mean, you usually have to pay for cloud computing power, right? Which should be around like $5 a month. Really depends on which service you're using.
Cool. Daksh, this next question is from Mahesh again. Is there something like incremental model building?
That's a great question because with Rasa Open Source 2.2, we released this feature called incremental training. And the use case for it is exactly what the question asks for, which is when you're practicing conversation-driven development, you would start off with some initial training data, train your assistant, collect some conversations, and then once you have new training data, you would make new NLU annotations or story annotations, and then want to retrain your assistant. But only this time, you don't want to retrain from scratch, but you would like to use the knowledge that your previous assistant has learned and just fine tune it. And this results in a slightly less time consuming process. And also the performance is not degraded when compared to training from scratch. So I would definitely encourage you to look at the incremental training feature.
Excellent. Okay, Tobias, we had another question for you. So is it possible to run Rasa also on-prem/offline on Android devices?
It's currently not possible to run Rasa entirely on an Android device, so including the model server and so on. But what you would usually do is have a Rasa server somewhere in the cloud and then using the REST API or whatever input channel you want to use with Rasa Open Source to send requests from your mobile device to the Rasa Open Source server, which would then handle these requests and send back the appropriate answers to your user.
Cool. And I think we probably have time for one more. This one's from Ben. I think I'm actually going to throw this to you, Alan, and also to Scott. I think you probably both have something to say about this. But what traits do you regularly see in great AI product people?
I can jump in. I think that there's first and foremost is empathy, and thinking through the user experience on both sides for the customer, for the people that build it, the makers. That is, I think, first order of business. The second would be curiosity. There's so much happening in this space. There's so many things changing each and every day. Understanding the sort of playing field and the world we live in is absolutely key. I mean, think of the changes that we've discussed here today and the different tools that we bring out with each and every release. So constantly exploring the boundaries of what's possible and what's desirable on the user experience. But then, that's just product. I personally believe that these conversational interfaces are the next generation of internet interfaces. We went from web to app, and now we're going to bot. And these will be as ubiquitous as the other two. We'll have massive product teams building these experiences. It is just sort of the natural order of business. So jump in. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. So I think, we got through our presentation pretty quickly today. I know we had a couple of pretty detailed questions that I think are probably better for us to handle in the forum, kind of about really specific use cases. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up for today. Thank you to all of our panelists and everyone who submitted their questions. If we didn't have time to get to your question, please meet us in the forum. We'll continue the discussion. And we'll be back here next month with the April edition of Beyond the Release Notes. We'll have another roundup of product news for you. Thanks again for joining us, everyone. That's a wrap. Have a great rest of your day.